Welcome back to Dial M for Miami. Season 1, Cracks in the Foundation, the Sergio Pino Story. A true crime podcast produced by Herdat Media and hosted by me, Anna Quincoces. Episode 3, Two Birds and an Eagle on a Wire. Baseless comments, nothing shady about him. This is how Nancy Pastor defended Sergio Pino right after the FBI raid, responding to a post on Lifestyle Miami's Instagram account. This quote could be deemed a bit self-serving, considering her long-term relationship with Pino and complicity in his lifestyle. In this episode, we're going to explore what shady means in Nancy's world, whether it's manipulating financial institutions or her involvement in Sergio's seemingly complex network. We'll dissect how her definition of integrity might differ from the rest of society's standards. But Nancy's words also reflect a deeper truth about her unwavering loyalty in Sergio's world, a world that operated by its own rules, where the boundaries of legality were often a little blurry. But more on Nancy later. Speaking of integrity, or lack thereof, let's shed a little more light on Pino's past. Sergio Pino earned the nickname Teflon because nothing ever seemed to stick to him. The man could walk through a hurricane of scandal without a hair out of place. But while the smoke swirling around him led to a lot of controversy, he always seemed to remain unscathed. We already know that Pino wasn't a big rule follower, in business for sure. But I found this revelation from a couple of former associates kind of interesting. It turns out that during his numerous marital escapades, Pino actually preferred to pursue women who were married, but not just married to powerful men, and really engaged in numerous extramarital affairs with several of these society ladies in Miami. You see, to Pino, it wasn't just the thrill of the affair that excited him, but rather that he was taking something of value from another powerful man, secretly and effectively mocking them in the process. Everything for Pino seemed to be about power and control, and these relationships were strategic moves in his larger game of chess. Not surprisingly, Pino's career was not without controversy, and it didn't require much of a deep dive to discover some of his more dubious activities over the years. His nickname didn't just symbolize his ability to evade legal repercussions. It spoke to a more profound, almost eerie ability to slide through life's obstacles without facing any consequences. When storms of controversy loomed, others got drenched, while Sergio, he emerged bone dry. The chaos that swirled around him, the arrest, ruined lives, shattered reputations, somehow never seemed to tarnish his image at all. It was as if he operated in a parallel universe, immune to the consequences that would destroy ordinary men. Sergio Pino's Teflon reputation was well earned. Despite being the subject of multiple investigations over the years, he managed to avoid any serious consequences. Take the 2006 federal grand jury investigation, for instance. It centered on allegations that Pino had hosted a Miami-Dade commissioner on a luxurious Cancun trip in exchange for political favors in supporting a significant development project in Doral. The probe zeroed in on a 2004 fishing expedition aboard Pino's private jet, a jet that was, no doubt, a floating symbol of his influence and connections. Ultimately, no charges were brought against Pino, but another individual on that fateful trip was arrested for an unrelated matter and ended up actually serving time. To Pino, this unfortunate soul was merely collateral damage, a casualty of war. Had he not been associated with Pino and taken part in that fishing excursion, he likely would have remained free. But for Pino, this was simply business as usual. He was no stranger to leaving chaos in his wake. As long as the wreckage never reached him, he was fine. It was yet another chapter in the story of a man who seemed perpetually untouchable. The details of this case reveal a pattern in Pino's dealings. He didn't just flirt with the line between right and wrong, he danced on it, almost flaunting it in full view of those who dared to question him. The federal investigation wasn't just about a single fishing trip. It was about the broader question of how Pino navigated Miami's intricate web of politics, of power, and of real estate. The fact that he emerged unscathed speaks volumes about his ability to maneuver within a system that, for most, would have been a death trap. Then there was the 2002 controversy surrounding lucrative contracts at Miami International Airport. Pino's company, Century Duty Free, who held a 14% stake in a joint venture, was accused of using minority partners as a mere front just to meet the county's disadvantaged business enterprise requirements. These minority partners were reportedly paid $14.6 million despite not contributing any substantive work. Although Pino denied any wrongdoing, the Miami-Dade County Inspector General's criticism was sharp. Yet, as always, no charges were filed against Pino. For him, it was business as usual, a minor bump on a road paved with controversy. Pino's involvement in U.S. Century Bank was yet another scandal that, for anyone else, would have resulted in significant repercussions. The bank received $50 million in TARP money. TARP stands for Troubled Asset Relief Program. It was a program created by the U.S. government in response to the 2008 financial crisis. The primary purpose of TARP was to stabilize the financial system by purchasing troubled assets, particularly mortgage-backed securities, and providing capital to banks and other financial institutions, basically to strengthen their balance sheets and restore confidence in the financial system as a whole. But Pino, as vice chairman of the board, was accused of using the institution to secure loans for himself, for his family, and for the companies that he was associated with. The allegations of self-dealing and mismanagement were substantial, but Pino brushed them off like lint on his designer suit. Pino was never charged. It was, once again, as if he operated within his own legal bubble, seemingly impervious to the consequences. During my research and conversations with those who knew Pino well, there was another instance which perfectly reflected Pino's reputed boldness in the face of, well, basically anything that interfered with his plans. This anecdote involves a bald eagle. And this wasn't just any bird. It was a protected species. It was a symbol of American strength and resilience, protected by U.S. law. But what's a little law for Pino? When he purchased a piece of land that housed the eagle's nest, he knew he was walking into quite the legal quagmire. Developing the property would be nearly impossible with such a high-profile tenant. Yet for Pino, impossible. That just wasn't a word he acknowledged. As the story goes, the eagle and the eagle's nest suddenly just poof, disappeared. The story of the eagle's mysterious disappearance was shrouded in whispers and rumors, especially among other developers. Pino claimed that in an act of God, the tree was struck by lightning, destroying the nest and sending the eagle soaring into the sky, never to be seen again. But according to many, the truth is more like Pino took matters into his own hands, or hired someone else to do it for him. As the story goes, the tree was split in two, the nest destroyed, and the eagle was shot. It's a chilling tale, one that speaks to Pino's willingness to sidestep even the most sacred of laws to achieve his goals. It wasn't just about real estate. It was about bending nature itself to his will. Rules were just obstacles to be removed, no matter what the cost. And in a city like Miami, where the line between legality and criminality is often a little blurry, Pino was a master navigator. His actions were bold, no doubt, but they were also very calculated. He always knew the risks, and he took them anyway. He was so confident in his ability to escape without consequence, and for the most part, he did. Enter Nancy Pastor, a woman whose role in Pino's life went far beyond the conventional mistress. She wasn't just another affair in a long line of extramarital dalliances. She was a partner, in every sense of the word. While most sources claim that he was instantly smitten with Nancy, and that, for the most part, she too felt an instant connection when they first met, it seems that Miss Pastor's profession proved fortuitous for Pino. Nancy's position as senior vice president of a prominent bank that loaned Pino tens of millions of dollars was, well, let's just say, convenient. She had access, she had influence, and perhaps most importantly, the willingness to bend the rules for the man that she loved. Their relationship wasn't just built on passion, it really was cemented by shared risks and mutual benefits. When Pino needed a lifeline, Nancy was there, willing to risk it all just to keep him afloat. One such instance stands out: the infamous wire transfer. According to former bank employees, Nancy defied her bank's policies to wire Pino millions from a certificate of deposit, despite the bank specifically forbidding the release due to Pino's delinquency on a massive $75 million loan. It was a brazen move, one that cost Nancy her career, but solidified her place in Pino's world. Nothing really says I love you like I'm willing to give up my entire career for you. The circumstances of this wire transfer read like a heist film. Nancy allegedly waited for the bank's wire system to go offline, a calculated move that suggests this was no spur of the moment decision. She knew what she was doing, and she did it anyway, a testament to her loyalty. The subsequent investigation by law enforcement was, of course, inevitable. Bank officers and employees, they were all interrogated. The institution's reputation was a bit tarnished, and Nancy was forced to step down. But to Pino, this was more than an act of love. It was proof that he and Nancy understood the rules of the game. They were on the same page, and the relationship and their entanglement only deepened as a result. According to my sources, this was the pivot point in their relationship. Nancy was no longer just a side piece. She was much, much more. She didn't just play the game, she rewrote the rules. And for Pino, she became absolutely indispensable. Nancy was, of course, terminated from the bank, but she didn't stick around licking her wounds for long. Pino's love interest reinvented herself and went to work, and by all accounts, is a competent real estate professional. I also understand that Pino put her in charge of a big project in Doral in addition to her other responsibilities. And also because of their close personal and business dealings, Nancy spent quite a bit of time at Century Home Builders headquarters in Coral Gables just to be near Pino. Pino's loyalty to Nancy, as one would imagine, came at a cost, particularly to his family. Pino's son-in-law, Carolina's husband, already worked there as director of sales, and Pino had wanted Carolina to join the family business. Carolina was thrust into really an impossible position. She was caught between her father's ambition and the woman who had caused her mother so much pain. Nancy's presence at Century Home Builders was a constant reminder of her father's betrayal, a living embodiment of the cracks in their own family's foundation. When Sergio suggested Carolina join the marketing department at Century Home Builders, it was as if he was asking her to choose between her father and her mother. One day, the tension reached a boiling point when Carolina found herself in the same office as Nancy at the very same time. According to witnesses, what happened next was a scene straight out of a telenovela. Carolina, fueled by years of pent-up anger and resentment, grabbed Nancy by the hair and dragged her out of the office. She then turned to her father defiantly and made it clear that she would never, ever work there as long as Nancy was around. But Sergio, true to form, chose Nancy. According to his family, he always chose Nancy. After all, she was an asset, someone who had proven her loyalty in ways few others could. She had become an essential part of his operation, both professionally and personally. She was a woman who was willing to risk everything for him. In the world Pino created, where rules didn't apply and everyone was disposable, Nancy was the exception. But as ruthless and calculating as Sergio could be in business, there was another side to him. This side was equally compelling. It was a softer, a more compassionate side that often really caught people by surprise. He was a complex individual. He was capable of both shrewd and morally questionable action, but apparently he was also well known for his generosity and loyalty to those he cared about. For every account of his ruthless business dealings or ethically questionable behavior, there is just as many stories of him stepping up to offer a lifeline to those in need. Whether it was an employee facing a personal crisis or a friend going through a rough patch, Sergio often provided support when others had turned their backs. He was the kind of person who would quietly pay off someone's medical bills or ensure a struggling family had what they needed to get by. These acts of kindness, while unable to erase the cruelty he inflicted on Tatiana, do add complexity to his character, and they make it all the more difficult for those that he helped to reconcile the man they knew with the one who was willing to go to such horrifying lengths to escape his marriage. To them, he was not just a ruthless businessman, but also a steadfast ally who stood by them in their darkest hour, making it almost impossible to completely forget the man who once showed them so much kindness. Join me next time on Dial M for Miami, Cracks in the Foundation, the Sergio Pino story, when we will explore the complex psyche of Sergio Pino and the duality of his character. A man capable of being both ruthless and kind, compassionate and cruel. We'll try to understand how someone, with so many pieces still in play, chose to end the game the way he did. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This has been Dial M from Miami, the Sergio Pino story, a true crime podcast produced by Hurrdat Media. Until next time, thank you for joining me. I'm Quincoces.